there's an elephant in the room. At least every time I present this, there feels like an elephant in the room around free. Really? This sounds like a lot of work. Now, I hope through the last couple of modules that you've understood that it's actually, right, yeah, we've had a meeting, we've done some work, we've put together a one-page plan, and we're about to have a second meeting. So that is some work, but it's not like what we're thinking about in a traditional financial plan where and maybe you've put all that information in. So maybe it does represent a lot of work to you. So let me just walk you through sort of the way I think about this question, should it really be free? So first, from my perspective, I originally did these free because I felt like it was the right thing to do. I should explain that. I met with a client. So let's walk through this, right? Prospect comes in for the first meeting. It becomes apparent in the first meeting. I'm going to use an example. I'm 35 years old. I left my job to start this new business I was so excited about, and it failed, and I've got $100,000 worth of debt. The good news is I went back to my company. I've got a good job there, but I've got $100,000 worth of debt, right? I cashed out my retirement money to try and start that business, right? So when I was building my business, I had we charged an asset-based fee, an AUM model, and a client like that who had no assets was not someone that I could work with back then. Now things have changed. A lot of people are charging a monthly retainer or an annual retainer or even an hourly rate. And so if it works in your model, then it becomes easier, right? But that would be one reason why somebody wouldn't become a client. Another would be that this represents a lot of work. You go to present it to them in the second meeting and they decide not to work with you and you think you did all this work for free. So let me a couple of things to think about. One, we're not here, the one-page plan is not your traditional 200-page thick, detailed, here's how you're going to implement the insurance, and here's exactly how we'll allocate the money, and here's the investment managers we'll use. Like, it's not that. It's not all of that work. Yes, you probably plugged in like age, assets, some of the goals, right? You probably plugged all that in to get a sense that you're headed in the right direction, that you think, you can say to the client, we're in the ballpark. But you didn't do all of that really specific disability insurance. Like, you didn't do all of that really cash flow modeling. You haven't done any of that. And so it's not, mainly because I think that stuff should be done as an ongoing bit by bit process rather than one big time. So that's the mindset shift I'm trying to get you to make is, yeah, it's not as much work as you think it is, but it still represents work. And we have real financial advisors who said, you know what, it represents work. And in fact, I found this one-page plan to be so valuable that I'm charging for the process. Right? We've got one advisor, she charges $850 for just she calls it the one-page financial plan process. Come in, we'll meet twice, I'll put together a plan, and off you go. And if that's all you want, that's fine. Right? It's an awesome idea. So yeah, you can charge for it. I still feel like, in fact, this is still what I would do. Absolutely what I would do. And I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of advisors using this process still do it this way. Meet with a client for the first meeting, or prospect for the first meeting. You gather all that information. You take the time to put together the one-page plan. You present it to them. And if they decide that it's not a good fit, that was an important part of the process. You don't want them as clients anyway, right? Remember, you only have, I'm going to use a number, but you only have 100 seats. In fact, Chris, one of the people associated with the society, Chris, a real financial advisor, I was just talking to Chris last week, and he told me he has 50 seats, and he's at 46. He's already filled 46, right? So he's like, I can be really careful about the remaining 4. Remember, you only have a limited number of seats. Taking, 2 meetings and a couple of hours of work to determine whether it's a good fit is just sort of, to me, like, I would still do it this way. It's a cost of doing business. Now, I actually think if handled with grace and humility and kindness, It's actually not a cost of doing business. It's the best marketing you'll ever do. That person who walks out of there with your one-page plan and just for whatever reason decides it's not a good fit, we don't take that personally. We don't get offended. We don't get upset. We just say, hey, look, if there's anything I can do in the future, please let me know. Right? They leave confused by the grace. Like, look, you're just putting good things out into the world. They leave, and I have found this over and over and over. Often the people who didn't become clients became my best source of referrals. Like, they would tell their friends, like, hey, I decided it didn't fit. I didn't like Carl's haircut. That's really funny, right? Or it wasn't a good fit for whatever reason, but I think you would really like Carl. Right? They became a great source. So I just think of it as like, can we put good stuff out into the world and it will come back? But I have no problem with saying, to go through this process costs $850 or $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever number you think. But that's not how I would do it. So hopefully there's a couple of things to this. Like free, really? The really part is often like, I did so much work. Now, I know you did plenty of work, and I know it's even more than the time. It's the wisdom that went into it. I know it's incredibly valuable. But you didn't do, right, that detailed cash flow analysis or asset allocation or all of that other work that you're going to do as part of the engagement. At this point, you haven't done that yet. That doesn't diminish the value, but you haven't done that yet. So hopefully that lowers the, And then second is like, I don't think of it as free. I mean, yeah, it's free to the client, but I don't think of it as giving away work. I think of it as doing good things and putting them into the world and knowing that they'll come back. It's sort of like if I do this, right? I know what will happen. Some magical thing happens out here, and then I know new clients will come from it. I don't really know how or where, and it's probably more like this and this. Like, I don't really know how or where. I just know if I keep doing good stuff for people, some magical process happens and new clients show up. This is part of the good stuff that I felt like I was doing, and I would do that. I would do that again. So hopefully that helps you understand how I feel about the plan. I was about to say, but feel free to charge for it, which is true. Totally true. So hopefully that covers this idea of, whoa, so much work. Really? It's free?